Apologies, this is going to have to form part of video 9C. I've had to start again. Anyway, as you can see, as I am descending into the woodland, which is just down there, you're getting quite thick vegetation now. It's almost like descending into the layers of the rainforest. You'd have your emergence up here, and you'd have your upper canopy, then your lower canopy, and then your forest floor. Some of these forest floor plants, mainly sort of ferns and things like that, ferns and nettles and things that flourish in very, very wet conditions. In terms of actual rainfall, it's pretty low down here, but in terms of precipitation, it's very high. Most of this area receives its stuff from mist rolling in from the sea, and bits of fog that the top of the cliff gets. So it's very much its own sort of micro ecosystem here. Trying to work out who might live in a little house like this. Okay, so I'm still descending. You can see the very top of a cliff just about through there, perhaps, depending on the light of a camera. Probably down to about 100 metres above sea level now. I think I've counted in the past 7 zigs and 7 zags all the way down, but that's only down to the forest, and then you've got quite a bit more, so I'm not looking forward to the walk back up. Just had a flashback to Mr. Goldman clinging onto this tree whilst on my year 12 trip, because it was so muddy down here, and so poor old Mr. Goldman clinging on for dear life. Yeah, this is about as close as it gets around here to being in a rainforest. You can notice always a good indication of moist but also good air quality is when you get loads of moss and lichen. You also get what I particularly love. I can never remember the name of this plant. I think it's some sort of type of mother-in-law's tongue. But yeah, I just absolutely love the little spirals you get in nature. These little fellas growing out, kind of unravelling. Soon to sort of go ping, like the bigger ones. So yeah, you've got lots and lots of these ferns around here. And very few places in the UK can you get a woodland so close to the sea. I mean, you can even hear the sea in the background. It's about somewhere around here that I'm going to stack it and fall over. I'm going to look like a right twit, especially if there's anyone else coming the other direction, of which I've seen a couple of people. But that's part of the fun of it, I guess. Beats being stuck in on Zoom, that's for sure. Right, so here I meet a nice little fork. This is when it all starts to go a bit mad around here. Got to admit, I have no idea how these networks of paths work. I have frequently got lost in here, walking with people. You can see here, these roots, by the way, reminds me of a little bit of our ITY rainforest lesson. You can almost see these a little bit like lianas, aren't they, growing up the tree, almost using the trunk for support. I think they might actually be part of the actual thing. It's so hard to see, they're all kind of intertwined. But anyway, there's quite a cool little rope swing here. Possibly shouldn't be recommending this to you, but I know that a couple of our year 12 students had fun on this when they came, namely Alessandro. It's looking like it's seen better days, this little thing, but I remember Alessandro shouting, "Woo, gorilla!" and almost falling off it, so that was quite fun. Anyway, so not quite sure where that way goes. I'm going to walk the way I know, the path better travelled, down to the seafront. So where we are here is a bit of a tribute to Jan. Not sure if he'll remember this, but I do remember him standing here with a large stick saying, "You shall not pass." He had great fun down here, sort of swinging from trees like Tarzan. The interesting thing is that relatively few people know about this place. It feels like a sort of untouched little slice of Eden. There's a few dog walkers who might live locally. perhaps, like me, they're just deterred by the prospect of having to turn around and go back up. However, you can actually get all the way along, as I will show you later on in this video. But you'll notice as well that this area, I mean, it is just a classic case of rewilding in action. This is fantastic. You know, people who are sort of eco warriors and, you know, the Gretas amongst you, hopefully love places like this, because it's just nature saying, no, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm actually, you know, doing this irrespective of human activity. It's technically managed, this coastline, by, well, interesting. Everyone kind of fobs it off, passes the buck onto others, I think. It's generally managed by the White Cliffs Countryside Partnership, which kind of operates between Dover and Folkestone. It also is owned by partly by the council, but also partly by the railways. So people that live at the top of a cliff are slightly reassured by the fact that houses are going to be protected slightly, because the railways agency aren't going to let the sea encroach too much sort of inland. They're not going to let too much retreat happen, because obviously that means no more railway, and that would just be catastrophic. I mean, that would be millions and millions and millions of pounds, and it'd be very, very difficult to sort of come back from that. So, taking you down some very slippery steps now. Chance of me stacking it is higher than ever. Yeah, some really slippery little bits of chalk down here. So, in some ways, I'm quite relieved that I'm not with ITY, because I'm not sure what I'd do with someone with a broken ankle down here. It's quite difficult for people to get down here. Although large parts of this land are often served by the Coast Guard team. So one thing you might notice down here is remnants of tents and other camping gear, and perhaps even fires, either by your sort of teenagers who are coming down here and just having a kind of Bear Grylls style evening down here, Mr. Farmery, who might sort of, you know, get thrown out once a week and ends up down here. Or often, unfortunately, what you get lots of are refugees who see this for the relatively calm and quiet coastline that it is, and so actually dock their little boats here, and can often come and sort of retreat here after a long crossing and make a fire, being relatively unnoticed, before them finding a police station and sort of registering. That's generally how it goes. The Coast Guard, who are the committee, the emergency services that look after this area of coastline, are often called out to this bit. And as you can imagine, they have to have all sorts of training on how to sort of abseil down parts of cliffs and all sorts. So it's a bit of a precarious landscape. But I think that's part of the beauty of it, really. It's what makes it so wild. Right, so here we are, arriving a lot closer to the sea. Not quite at sea level, probably still about 10-20 metres, but very, very windy now. I'm mindful, having watched a couple of my videos the other day, that I'm not going to talk when it's really windy, otherwise it's just no chance of hearing anything. But yes, I will continue this path and pause again when we get to the bridge. Right, almost at the bridge now. God, you can see how steep. I'm not looking forward to that walk back up. You can see some fresh landslip there, or rockfall from the top there. You get lots and lots of nesting birds in these cliff sides. We're really lucky. We get loads and loads of birds of prey. We get buzzards, peregrine falcons, all sorts. Unfortunately here, I think I can just about pick out what looks like the remnants of someone's tent or overalls or something. It looks like perhaps, yeah, part of a tent which was possibly used by immigrants arriving perhaps sometime in the night, maybe even during a storm, and they've obviously left bits down here. So yeah, little bits of evidence of their arrival, which, by the way, happens at least every other day. We have the helicopters out for them very often. As you can imagine, I mean, today the sea is a little bit choppy, but there's some days where it's so calm it's like a mill pond, and that's obviously prime time for these boats to sort of take their chance, try their luck, and arrive over here.